I'm Carol Magruder, and I'm the leadership specialist with the Loop. And this is our leadership development program. And so we have designed a special cohort, just means your group, just for the clergy and the spiritual and religious folks that we've been working with through our collaboration with UCSF, The Gathering. And so I have a slide on them. So Dr. Valerie Yerger, who's not on the call, is the project director of the Loop. Then there's myself and Anila Pillai, and we have a special guest star tonight, Reverend Carolyn Dyson, who's going to be our clergy specialist. So we will have a component of a specialist, a professional in clergy. And so we, Dr. Val and I have traveled all over this country together doing the work that we do around prohibiting menthol and flavors. And prayer has been a big part of what's kept us going and what we feel has been our success as well, because we really have moved this needle. So we are very happy to have this special cohort of people who have a spiritual foundation. And we're going to, work through the state, because we are in a state that's, freedom of religion or freedom from religion. But this component will have a spiritual foundation. And so right now, before we get started, in our tradition, we're going to bring in Reverend Carolyn Dyson. She's on the phone, so she can't see the beautiful picture of herself, but she's going to be working with us as our specialist, our clergy specialist, and bringing in that component. And I'm going to bring in the content around health, equity, and tobacco. So Reverend, we call her Reverend Di, Reverend D, can you go on? She's going to start us off with prayer tonight. Reverend Dyson, you might have muted yourself. And could everyone mute themselves who's not speaking?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. And I'm hearing somebody's television set or something. So please mute yourself if you're not actively speaking. Thank you. There we go. That's better. Yes, I can hear you. So you're going to lead us
hello, everyone, again. And I promise that at our next meeting, I'll be on the screen. For now, I'd like for you, if you would, to join me in a moment of prayer for our work. We gather in this moment with spirits of community, healing, and empowerment. We gather seeking directions, solutions, and justice for our villages, our men, women, and our children. Our prayers and our plans are for better tomorrows for our people now and for future generations. As leaders, our prayer comes this evening with hearts and minds of inclusion as we welcome to the table the villages representing Christ Jesus, the villages representing Allah, the villages representing Buddha, the villages representing Jehovah, the villages representing Yahweh, and all others. We ask in this prayer, as we gather, that we would be granted peace, that our communities and our work would be granted healing power, that we would move with empowerment for our community and for our people. We speak in our planning for those who have no voice, and we plan and we seek justice for those that have gone on too soon, addicted to addiction. Our prayer this evening is that we would be able to move with power, purpose, and persuasion. This is our prayer until the trumpet sounds. Let us say amen.
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 All righty. Thank you so much, Reverend Dyson. And I want to say that we've traveled all over the country, and sometimes when things are tough, I send her a text and say, put a prayer in for me, because we are making an impact and fighting a formidable foe. And so I just really want to acknowledge you, Reverend Dyson, and tell you how much I've appreciated you over these years. And I'm happy that we can do this work together on this particular cohort that we're working on. And we'll see how we can bring this into, because in our freedom of religion, sometimes we leave religion out because we don't want to offend people. So we want people to be able to work from their own understanding of God as a spiritual being, whatever you call your God. And so I just thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to get rolling. So this particular cohort is a collaboration between the Loop and the UCSF Abundant Life Health Ministries. And I want to really acknowledge Michelle Mosley, who is the foundation and the bedrock, and Priscilla Banks. We have been able to plug into the hard work that they have done for years and to really expand our tobacco control network now that we have funding and resources. And it's just been wonderful to plug into something that we can see has really been cultivated and nurtured. And we want to do our part to continue that. So I want to just really give a shout out to them. Through our affiliation, we had some funding that kicked in. The UCSF also trying to work on the health disparities in San Francisco for Black folks. And there are only 2 Black people left in San Francisco, so that they put in funding and have made it a priority to deal with our health disparities around cancer in San Francisco, which I'm from, even though I don't live there anymore. I just, I'm just grateful for that, for the opportunity and for the resources. And we want to do what we can to increase our collaboration and to strengthen the churches and ministries that are part of their network. So this is a slide up of the UCSF Abundant Life Ministries. So they have the Gathering Health Symposium. They have many grants. They provide what we call technical assistance, and we're going to change that and call it tailored assistance, so that we can get in and help folks in churches where they are to grow and expand and to benefit from the opportunities that we've been fighting for our people. And Twyla's on this call. So Twyla's my sister in tobacco control. We've been working together for 20 years. She's in Sacramento. And so now we have these resources that we have fought really hard for our people. And so part of this leadership is to get people ready so that we can benefit. Many times we fight and take the licks, and other people come in and benefit, and we don't even benefit from what we have sacrificed and suffered for. So part of my goal, my mission before I ride off into the sunset with retirement in maybe 5 years, is that I want to have people in a position that they can benefit from the work that we have been doing for these past 10, 15, 20 years. So that's the UCSF Abundant Life Health Ministries Network. We are the Loop, and so we are housed in UCSF, the University of California, San Francisco. And this project is about health equity and tobacco control. And Dr. Valerie Yerger, who's a project director, she just got an award from the UCSF, the chancellor. Her name is going to be put on the wall at UCSF forever because of the work that she's been doing around tobacco control, and particularly with the Loop and the leadership that she's provided. So she's not on, but she will be on for some of our other meetings that we're going to be having with this process. So what is the Loop? And so it's hard to describe what we do for people who are in tobacco control, because there's so many other issues facing our communities. But the Loop is it's a one-stop training and tailored assistance delivery system that supports California tobacco control programs, so that's through the state, and the greater community. So this is a new augmentation in our contract to help the greater community to strengthen their capacity to connect, communicate, and collaborate effectively with their local communities, especially those that are disproportionately burdened by tobacco. So this cohort, even though it seems like it's going to be primarily African American, is for all priority populations, of which African Americans are one, Latino, Hispanics, certain groups, the Pacific Islander community, the Samoans, who we're hoping to join in, because we live together and have many of the same issues. So this project is funded through the state. It's free to our community to help get people ready to participate and to stop the biggest killer of our people, the biggest preventable cause of death, which is tobacco and its related diseases. The mission statement of the Loop our mission statement is to support tobacco control advocates and the greater community to connect, communicate, and collaborate effectively with California's diverse priority populations to eliminate commercial tobacco use. And we differentiate commercial tobacco use from traditional tobacco use with our Native American brothers and sisters, the Indians, because they use it in a spiritual way. So commercial tobacco use has to do with exploiting people with profit and death. And we differentiate whenever we can between commercial and traditional. The vision statement of the Loop is that we believe the elimination of commercial tobacco use is necessary for health and prosperity. We will work collectively towards a California where the tobacco industry no longer has influence over diverse party populations, where all communities are empowered to thrive physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So we know that tobacco takes a toll. It takes resources from our community. It takes people from our community, and it's a driver of every ill that we have. And so we want to eliminate that, and that's our vision statement and the mission of the Loop. So the key components of a Loop are technical assistance, which is tailored assistance. So we actually can go in to a church, you don't have to be funded, and we can do an assessment with you and we can help you with whatever you need. Parallel to that, the African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council, we have been awarded the state coordinating grant for the state of California. And we will be helping African Americans as is. There's 4 altogether. So there's one for us, there's one for the Hispanic Latino community, one for the Asian Pacific Islander, and one for the LGBTQ. So between these 4 state coordinating centers, we'll be working together to really serve our communities and to get people ready to participate and to get rid of tobacco in their communities. So the other 2 components that we have are trainings and webinars. And then the third component, which is bold, is the professional training and leadership development opportunities. And that's what this portion is about that we're talking about tonight. I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. For those of you who don't know me, I have really 25 years now of experience in tobacco control. And I've done some of everything possible. I wash, mop the floor, do the dishes, and give the speech. So I have over 20 years of advocacy, public policy, community capacity building, presentations, community-based participatory research. I'm a co-chair and founding member of the African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council, and I'm also a member of ADEP, which is our Priority Population Leadership Group for the state. I also have done a lot of work with infant mortality. I was 7 years board president for the Black Coalition on AIDS, which is the oldest African-American AIDS organization in the West Coast, and it's one of the few that survived all these years, and it's now called Rafiki Coalition. So that's my background, and my mission right now is to tie all of these things together. So it's not just about tobacco control, it's about all of the things underneath that make us smoke, that make us overeat, that make us use drugs, substance abuse, and that kind of thing. So we're tying all that together, and we're talking about the social determinants of health, of which one of those things is meaningful employment. And that's a big part of this, is meaningful employment for people, whether it's the people on the call or you are the access for your religious institutions, for your communities, to help get people ready. So this is a virtual leadership institute, and it's a unique learning opportunity for individuals who are serving their communities to enhance their leadership and advocacy skills in a supportive environment. For those of you who decide to join and complete the program, you will receive a certificate of completion from the University of California in San Francisco, and you will be an Equity Fellow for life, and so you'll have access to this program and to the resources going forward. These are just pictures. This is our first cohort, we call it, folks from all over the state, and they completed and have done different things. Since you're clergy, we have a little fieldwork component, and so that'll be tailored for people who are working in religious or spiritual institutions. And this is the first group, so you can see they were all over the state. So if you have other people that you know who might want to join into this, they're welcome. There's going to be a window of opportunity for people to review this video and then also to participate. So this is just the beginning in terms of getting people the information so they can understand what this program is and what we're doing. This is one of our Loop Fellows, Marlene Hurd. She's based in Oakland, and she received an award from the Alameda County Tobacco Control Coalition for her great work in the field, and she is a champion. So this was in 2015, and we're moving forward. So hopefully that will be one of your pictures, or all of you, talking about the work that you've been doing as a result of your participation in our leadership program. So this LDP is tailored for the transcendent community, and transcendent people believe that they're beyond or above the range of normal or merely physical human experience. It's open to all, including agnostics and atheists, but we will be using prayer. It's for you to learn more about tobacco control, to increase health equity, to improve the health of our communities, to learn how to access funding and employment opportunities. That's a big part of this. We want to have fun. We want to uplift each other. And we want to also improve our health, our self-care, because people who give and work for the community, it can be a big strain and a drain on you. So we're going to spend some time, and Reverend Dyson is going to help us with that, of taking better care of ourselves and nurturing and uplifting each other. So that's a part of this as well for people who want to go out and participate. So healthy communities facilitate the individual's ability to make healthy choices. Many of you are on health committees at your churches. And so we know that much of the work that we do is about the individual. So it's about exercising more, eating less, making more healthy food choices, getting our screenings, getting our mammograms, monitoring our blood pressure. And that's a major component to being healthy. But another and equally important part is that we want the community to support the individual's effort to be healthy. So we want communities where it's easier to make a healthy choice than an unhealthy choice. And so the neighborhood where I grew up in Bayview, Hunters Point, I actually bused myself out to another district out by the beach in San Francisco. So every day in high school, I would ride out of Bayview into the fog, but also into clean, healthy, vibrant communities that didn't have a lot of liquor stores, that didn't have all of the trips and wires that we expect our children to navigate to get to healthy adulthood. So the main part of what we do, in our churches, we want to have healthy food and have healthy choices, but we also want to look outside of the walls of our institutions and see what's going on in our community, and how we can make our community stronger and support individual health decisions and make it easier for people to make a healthy choice. So when I travel all over. When I'm in Marin or San Rafael, where in Bayview, there are 4 liquor stores. In Marin, there are 4 juice bars. There are 3 yoga places. There's, healthy things going on for people to choose from. And that's what we want to create in all of our communities. And in many of the churches now, because people have moved on, so the church is there, but people who go to the church they're driving in and out. They no longer live in the communities. And I know that's happening. I go to churches all over. So that's happening all over the country, where people don't live in the community where their church is. They hang on as long as they can before they get a church where they live, but that can go on for years and years. And so it makes for a bigger disconnect with the community, because people are just there on Sundays or for Bible study and that kind of thing as well. So this is the African American Tobacco Control Platform. And I just have this on to show that we don't do this work in a vacuum, that we know that everything is interrelated. And so it's not just about telling people don't smoke. That's the least of it, actually. It's about a lot more. So we have a 10-pronged platform about what we need to do to address these issues at the root level. So we know that tobacco, it's not a public health problem. It's actually a problem of political will. And we see this battle all over, especially with our elected officials, many of whom take tobacco industry dollars. And when they do that, it buys their silence and complicity. When we see tobacco industry sanctions, we need to know that they're always measured and they preserve the status quo. In 1998, we had the Master Settlement Agreement, where the Attorney General sued the tobacco industry, and there was a $206 billion settlement that was dispersed to different states. And as soon as that happened, the tobacco industry stock went up, because the tobacco industry, they just don't like uncertainty. But once they know what's happening, they simply raise their price and pass that on to their addicted consumer, and they never miss a beat. And generally, they make more money no matter what we are doing on our end, no matter what seems like a victory. They are still making more money than ever. So sanctions are not designed to stop the #1 preventable cause of death, because that is political suicide. We know in San Francisco that Supervisor Malia Cohen introduced legislation to ban the sale of menthol and all flavored tobacco products. That passed unanimously. And now the tobacco industry, RJ Reynolds is funding a big referendum. And they're bringing, they have the ads going, the mailers going, and are trying to make her life, have an impact. She's actually running for another office. So that when you go against them, there's a price that you pay. And we also know that Black, poor, and marginalized folks are often the public policy bargaining chips. When President Barack Obama signed the Tobacco Control Act, which is almost 10 years ago, they took out all the flavors except for menthol. So menthol was left in, and that's what 80 or 90% of African-American smokers smoke. They smoke menthol. Other people smoke menthol. Women, 50% of women smoke menthol. The native Pacific Islanders, Hawaiians, and Samoans, Filipinos have high menthol prevalence rates. But so it was a negotiated deal where the tobacco industry lobbied hard, and they said, okay, we'll take out the flavors that entice children, but we're going to leave that menthol in, which is the biggest problem is menthol. So in the United States, smoking and tobacco-related deaths kill more African Americans than AIDS, car accidents, violence, and other non-tobacco-related cancers, killing and combined. And killing 45,000 African Americans every year. So total Americans is about 450,000 Americans die, which 45,000 of those are African American of the whole country. And so we know that is our biggest killer, hands down. And this is a chart just to show you that graphically. Homicides, which are constantly in the news. We had the killing of Stefan up in Sacramento a few weeks ago. I was doing someplace, and I was in another state, but you're seeing the videos, you're seeing the community react. But for every Trayvon, for every Stefan, for every Oscar Grant, there are 6, 7 adults, parents, grandparents who die from a tobacco-related disease. AIDS now has become a manageable chronic disease if people take care of themselves and take their medicine. I have many friends, I'm from San Francisco, as I said, so a lot of friends who HIV positive, and when the new meds came out, and they're still alive and they're living productive lives. So this leadership development program is designed to foster and to build capacity amongst the people who need it the most, who don't know very much about these things, about tobacco control and the how deep it goes and the harm that it does our community. So leadership fellows, which I'm hoping that you all will become, my thing is jumping. You just need to be in alignment with the Loop mission statement. The time commitment is about 6 to 12 hours per month. And I'm going to make this a briefer webinar portion and then have people do some of the work that we're going to be suggesting in their churches. And then we'll come back for a final meeting. I'll give you the schedule, but that's the layout of this one. So there are webinar calls, there are readings, and then there will be just some work in your own spiritual religious institution where you are. So people have all different kinds of backgrounds. We've had doctors, we've had people who are in high school, students. So lay and professionals are welcome. You just need to want to know more about tobacco control. You don't have to be working in tobacco control, because few people are. And we just want people who are passionate about this. And so that's what we're looking for. This tobacco tax, many of you when I've toured some of the churches, this is a tobacco tax that we worked hard to pass, and it's increased the funding and revenue for tobacco control activities back to where we were with Prop 99, which passed in 1988, 1989. So now we have many of the same people are still here, and now we're going to make this money really count. When we first got in tobacco control, everybody was kind of feeling their way, but now we know what we want to do, and we're going to make this money funding count for our communities. So 56 passed, and now the funding is starting to roll. So we saw the movie Hidden Figures, most of us, and learned about the role of African-American women in NASA with the space missions. But just like I didn't know anything about these women hidden figures, there are also lots of hidden careers. And a big portion of what we're going to be talking about are those careers and the funding opportunities that are available. So there are jobs everywhere with tobacco control, education, media, research, evaluation, community grants, public policy. There's even going to be work in enforcement because a lot of the tax is going to go to the Department of Justice, and they will be hiring enforcement officers to go around to the stores to monitor and make sure that stores that are selling tobacco products have the proper tax stamps on them to avoid the counterfeiting and smuggling that can come. Somebody, could you mute your line? Somebody's line popped up. So the funding opportunities are going to come local health departments. So all the health departments in the state, their budgets have been augmented. Some of them will be having direct grants with community-based organizations. San Francisco just had a funding cycle, I believe, that closed this week, but there will be other funding opportunities. And generally those grants are smaller, they're easier to access than the state grants. And those are the things that we can help you with through the loop and through the African American Tobacco Control Coordinating Center. So there will also be funding through the California Department of Public Health. So there'll be direct, what we call competitive grantees. So organizations that have the capacity can apply for a grant directly from the state. They have cycles, RFPs, we call them, requests for proposals, and we can help you get your proposals together to position yourself so that the groups that are in a position to benefit from that. I would imagine, I think Third Baptist is on the call. So I know Third Baptist has a foundation in San Francisco, so that the bigger churches would be in a position to go after some of these funding dollars and perhaps have something for all the churches, or perhaps have a program just for Third Baptist and the folks in your community. And then there's another thing I'm going to talk to you about, which is community-based participatory research. That's how Dr. Val and I met on a community-based participatory research project over 10 years ago, and we've been together ever since. So that's a viable way for people, the community, to decide what's relevant research, because many times we are researched upon, but things are irrelevant and don't have anything to do with our lives. They're meaningless. And all the result of the study is that it requires more study. So when the community participates, then it helps to keep the research process honest and to make what you're studying from the community something that we need to be studied and something that we can do something about when we get the results. So we're going to talk about that as well in our program. So leadership, what is leadership? They're all different kinds, they're all different personalities. They're quiet leaders who don't say anything, but when they do say something, it's meaningful. They're people who are more boisterous. So whatever your style is, that's fine. So we want people just to be authentic, to be themselves, and to see themselves to be, you're anointed as a leader when you feel like you are, and you start assuming that role. So we're going to talk about what a leader is. And these are just some pictures of leaders. And so usually leaders, when they're alive, they're not appreciated as much as when they're gone. So that was a picture of Cesar Chavez, who fought for the farm workers. Now we have Cesar Chavez Day, I think that March 31st. But when he was having his great boycotts and fighting for rights for the farm workers, he wasn't, people are arrested, maligned. And now he is, a national, at least in California, hero to us. This man here, Malcolm X, who had a U.S. postage stamp with his image on it. Malcolm X, El Haj Malik, I don't know why my thing is advancing. So, as I said, I'm sure he never dreamed that he would be on a stamp one day in the United States of America. There's Harvey Milk from San Francisco, who was our first openly gay supervisor. I was living in the city, a teenager at the time, who was assassinated, also on a U.S. postage stamp for the country. There's Mother Teresa, who worked with the poor in India. I think she was originally from Poland. And so we know that the work that she did to help the poor and disaffected people. Malala, who's a child who was shot because she was getting an education, and it turned that horrible experience into an international leadership role that she has around the education for girls and for women. This is a woman here, the one in the middle, that's Lori Comstock, who's a shy woman in Sacramento, and she established the families, the survivors, for people who have people in their family who've died from tobacco-related diseases, and she organized an event every year a really shy, unassuming woman. There she is doing a media interview. And I used to go up and speak every year when she did that. So she lost her sister, her parents to tobacco-related diseases, heavy smokers. And she took that pain and she turned it into something positive this day. And so now that we have funding back, we're going to see if we can get her back. So leadership fellows are people who want to improve their communities, who seek systems and policy changes. So it's not so much about the individual, but it's about getting the biggest bang for our buck, who advocate for their communities, who work where they are, who speak truth, who seek knowledge, who have cultural humility, and believe in the end game. The end game is the state of California has declared that by the year 2035, we will have zero smoking prevalence in our state. And we are working across this state to make that happen. And so initially our tobacco control efforts, because California is just behind Utah in terms of smoking prevalence, but not for all communities, not for African Americans, not for the LGBTQ community. And so we want everybody to move along this time and to progress together. And we're going to be doing all that we can. So what I use is the analogy of the Titanic, where, on the Titanic, the people in first class, they were able to get into the lifeboat, but the people in steerage were not. So we want to send enough lifeboats for everybody so that we can get everybody off the Titanic, because the Titanic is going down. And so,
yeah.
Yes, who said that?
Reverend Dyson.
All right, thank you. Yes. So we want to send everybody the lifeboat, and there are different types of lifeboats that we're going to be sending. So our leadership program developed was just to foster leadership capacity and to increase health equity. And we also know that leadership, it can be depressing, it can be isolating, it can be demoralizing, and that when we're making history, usually we don't know it. It doesn't feel like it only till we look back and we see we have been making history. So I can tell you that we have really been making history, our group, and we want you to come along with us and help us to continue. Leadership can also be exhilarating, and we know that we're making an impact. And so when we talk about the tobacco-related disparities are differences in patterns, prevention, and treatment of tobacco use, the risk, incidence, morbidity, mortality, and burden of tobacco-related illnesses that exist among specific population groups in the United States, and the related differences in capacity and infrastructure, access to resources, and environmental tobacco smoke exposure. Our children, Black children, have the highest exposure to secondhand smoke, which means that their family members are still smoking in the home. We know that when it's time to respond to a grant, the folks who most need it have the least capacity to get it and manage it. And so that's what this is about. When we see health and equity, this is a tree, and we see that the roots are all these things that we're fighting against: tobacco marketing, unhealthy diets, unemployment, unsafe living conditions, poverty, racism, poor quality schools. And so when you have bare roots there are no leaves on your tree. And even though you're facing the things that other folks are, you just don't have the capacity or energy or resources to deal with them. So when we see a healthy tree, we notice that there's still issues to be dealt with, but the community just has the capacity to deal with them better. There's community empowerment, there's social networks, political influence, and equitable power structure. And all of these things help you to have a thriving, healthy tree or a thriving, healthy community. When we talk about equality versus equity, equality means everyone gets a pair of shoes, but equity means that everyone gets a pair of shoes that fit. So it's not about giving everybody a pair of size 12s, but it's about assessing what do people need. And this slide is one of our ones that we love because it's comparing equality and equity. And there's another slide that I didn't have a chance to put that has reality. So in reality, the little boy who gets the 2 boxes so he can see over the fence, he's starting out not just on 1 box, but he's starting out with no boxes below the level of the earth. And so when we talk about equity, then we're talking about the restructuring of resources and power and the redistribution of those things in order to have equity. So this slide is out of order, but when we talk about cessation, because we're going to talk about what are the things that the church, the clergy can do. And one of them is just to help people with addictions. And so it doesn't just have to be tobacco. So we want to frame messaging about smoking cessation as a social justice issue, that the client is the victim, not the perpetrator. So many people are feeling so guilty about smoking because we have so much going on, but we want them to understand that they have been preyed upon, they have been manipulated, they have been oppressed and exploited, and that's how we get all these products in our community that folks are using. And so we want to stop that flow. We want to address the SDOH is the social determinants of health. So we want to deal with the root issues, address the social determinants of health in everything. So we're talking about meaningful employment, and that's one of the things of how can we begin to incorporate addressing these things in everything that we do. I attended the Black Infant Health Conference a few weeks ago in Sacramento, which deals with our high infant mortality rate. So we're not just going to talk about our babies have a two times more chance of dying before their first birthday. We're going to talk about that, but we're also going to talk about their mother and father needs a meaningful job that has health insurance and that has respect and dignity, where they have a locus of control in what they're doing. So how can we include that in whatever we're doing? Job boards, talk about work-related issues. At the conference, they also talked about how a college-educated professional Black woman has a more chance of having a low birth term baby, low birth weight, and having maternal death than a white woman who has less than a high school education. So the stress, as you move up in the world, there's more stress. And as what Notorious Big told us, more money, more problems. So how do we talk about that in our churches? How do we support people with all of the stress-related issues that people have when they do have a job? That's part of what we're talking about as well. And then also, this is a slide, but including exposure to secondhand smoke, we're talking about ACEs now, adverse childhood experiences. So when children are exposed to secondhand smoke, that's actually an adverse childhood experience, and it's a barometer for a lot of other things that are going on if people are still doing that. So the social determinants of health are life-enhancing resources such as food supply, housing, economic and social relationships, transportation, education, and healthcare, whose distribution across populations effectively determines length and quality of life. So the California Endowment has a campaign called Zip Codes Matter, and how people in the same city in different zip codes could have a 7 to 10 year difference in their expected life expectancy. So what can we do to touch on that? So when we talk about, it's not just about telling people don't smoke, but it's much more than that. And that makes it more open for you all to incorporate some of the other needs that you have when you're doing tobacco control work. And we're going to show you how to do that. So this is the slide, The Place Matters, where people live affects their health. Less affluent neighborhoods have more hazards and fewer resources. Zip code determines length and quality of life and matters more than your genetic code. So more than your DNA, your zip code matters more for your life expectancy. And people living in poor urban and rural communities are more likely to smoke. So we know that. So I'm, encouraging you to join us on the journey for funding and employment opportunities, to increase our advocacy skills, to address the social determinants of health, to network, to have self-care and support each other. So we're going to talk about how we can take better care of ourselves and to support each other in what we're doing, and plant seeds in your own garden. So bring tobacco control where you are. So these are the dates. I hope that this is the right slide. Yes, so the simple application that we have is going to be released on Friday, April 27th. I can tell you anybody who's on this call is in if they choose to. We're going to have the applications due on Monday, May 14th. So we'll do another round of e-blast and include a link to this video so that people can see what we're talking about. So if you know of someone, it'd be great if for people who are on the call, if you can get someone in your own institution, your own church, to join you, so that there would be 2 or 3 of you together. That would be wonderful. and we're going to notify applicants on Friday, May 18th. We're going to start with the webinars on May 22nd. And so they're going to run May 22nd through June 19th, 1 day a week on Tuesdays. And I believe we're going to do 6 to 7. Yes, someone said something. 6 to 7 p.m. will be our time. And then we're going to take July off for people to work on a project in their own church. And then we're going to have our final class July 24th, the final webinar. So each class will be a webinar like this. And then we'll have also some opportunities for people to meet together. I'm going to be all over the state. So there are lots of different things that we're going to be doing. And then we'll get with you to work on a particular project or things that you can do in your own institution. Did someone have a question or a comment?
Could you repeat the schedule again, please?
Okay.
This is Doris, Third Baptist.
So we're going to have, the application is going to be online and it will be released Friday, April 27th. And then the application will be due Monday, May 14th. And it's you could be able to do it in one sitting. We'll notify people that they're accepted on Friday, May 18th. And then the program itself will be from May 22nd to June 19th. Those are Tuesdays. And it will be Tuesdays, the days that we meet between 6 and 7 p.m. Going to take off July, and that people will have some project that we'll talk about more. And you'll do whatever that is. And it'll be things simple that you're kind of already doing. And then we'll meet back for our final webinar, July 24th. Okay, everybody got that. And this is going to be posted. So you'll be able to see this for those of you, everyone will be able to see it. And then I see I still have some audio on this slide. So our loop team, look, I can't get that off of there, but Dr. Valerie Yerger, myself as a leadership specialist, we've got evaluators, we have media and marketing folks. And so we have a whole cadre of people who are just waiting to help you do what you want to do and what you need to do. So right now I'm going to open it up for questions or comments.
Carol, this is Reverend Dyson. I think that this virtual format is just excellent. And I'm excited about the possibilities for this leadership cohort. I would like to know, will there be a time, possibly towards the end of the training, when we will meet together as cohort fellows?
So we do have, most of you are in the Bay Area. So if we might get folks from other parts of the state, but if for Bay Area people, we will arrange something, some kind of a social event where we can get together, or perhaps even give out our certificates of completion. So that can definitely happen, especially for Bay Area people. And we're actually having a loop retreat the first weekend in May, but that's for our cohorts, our people who have already completed. So there would be time. We're going to do that every year. So next May, we usually do it in San Jose. Folks, if you've been a Loop Fellow, you can come back and we pay for your expenses, your travel expenses. But we'll arrange something to do in the Bay Area. And so Reverend Dyson, I'll get with you and we can work that out. Have a nice luncheon or something for people. Yes, we definitely can do that. Any other questions or comments? Going once? Going twice?
I do. Just
Hello? Oh,
yes, this is Reverend Dyson again. I know that the Abundant Life Project with Priscilla Benz and her excellent leadership has done wonders. At some point, is there a particular faith-based institution that has moved in excellence with this work that might serve as a model for us as we move forward in our churches and communities?
I am praying, yes. And so we want to help identify that group and help them to, and I imagine some of the bigger churches could be the holder of this. And so I have many ideas. And one of the things that I'll be doing with the African American Coordinating Center is I'm just going to, we have a council of which Twyla is a part. So we're going to just have ideas for people for grants that we know are needed. So one thing that I know is needed, it would be great for a church to apply. And, I think of Third Street Baptist because they already have a foundation. So they are set up, I believe it's set up as a nonprofit to apply for funding to work with all the other churches. So they would share resources. They best know how to work with churches. So there are lots of many ideas that I have from doing this work for so long that I will be sharing with people to see if it's a fit, and to help them to we have consultants and that tailored assistance to help people formalize it and get everything together that's needed. Just as food for thought, an idea that I have for Black Infant Health, because so many people are using marijuana. So what are some of the things that we can do with families so that they are community research partners, and do some surveys to assess what's going on with the mothers, these pregnant mothers and families, and what's the best messaging? What are the things that they need that they could relieve their stress with other than smoking and marijuana and alcohol? When you're pregnant and expecting, and otherwise as well. So that's some of the things that that I have been thinking about for years and years. And so we'll be writing things down and helping, just having little templates for people, and then they can adapt it to what they're doing, what their needs are in their communities, and build a grant around it. Yes. So
Hello.
Michelle, I see a raised hand. Yeah.
Oh, yes. I had been trying to ask a question, but I think I had gotten myself on mute.
Mm-hmm.
So my question was, in terms of the webinars, do you envision those being sort of like the one today, with you presenting some information and the fellows responding to having discussion, or will there be guest speakers, or how will the webinars kind of play out? Are they primarily lecture?
Yes. So they're primarily lectures. I have a set of lectures on tobacco control, on health equity, social determinants of health. Reverend Dyson will look at her schedule, so she will be leading us in some type of prayer when she's on. I also, she'll be working on part of that self-care of how to, she's going to look at this and decide which direction she wants to go in. But I would imagine scriptures that you can use, or just, she knows the church community. So what can, Christians are great, but so what can we do to move things through our institutions when the human factor? Dr. Val is going to lead us in some deep breathing and some things. She's going to have a series on stress and how to alleviate stress, and the role that stress plays on our body, and how we can do things to eliminate stress in our lives, or to manage it. So those are some of the things. And so it's open, and I tailor it as much as I can to the needs of people. So if there's something that people want to talk about or deal with, then we do that. And also, if there's some expertise that people want to share, they are welcome to do that as well. So we have a lot of leaders on this call. We might have a session where we talk about best practices, or where we, talk about things that work, things that don't work, that kind of thing. So there's some flexibility. So there's a core group of sessions that I want to give about just the landscape, the different things that are going on in terms of the infrastructure of tobacco control in California. And then I'm open and very flexible to, and if so, if there's something that you would like to get on, Michelle or Priscilla, then that you would be welcome to do that as well.
Okay, thank you. And I did have a question about the self-care aspects of that we'll be learning about.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you think we'll have enough of a skill set at the end of this that we could go into our churches or organizations and actually share how to do the deep breathing, or how to, whatever the self-care thing activity
Yes.
may be, because that seems like that would be something, you know, very beneficial.
Yes, we definitely can. We definitely can work on that. And so for folks who want to do that, that could be something that people would practice over the downtime before we come back. In some of our other projects, like we've made CDs of Dr. Val leading the deep breathing and meditation. We have scripts for people just to read, so that you don't have to, reinvent the wheel. So we can definitely put together a package of resources for people to be able to do that, and then have them practice, as part of our webinar, or go and practice and report back. Reverend Dyson could really help with that, because that's what she does. So we can tailor it. So, once you've heard this introduction, then people will start thinking about what you would like. And then as I said, there's a core component that we want to get out, and the rest can be tailored around what your needs are.
Okay,
Carol, can I offer this quick example in terms of self-care? I had the experience some time ago, last year, of working with a woman who had been in her church 30 years and very active in a very demanding position. She wasn't clergy. And she asked me to have lunch with her because she wanted to let me know first. I'm not the pastor, but just, she says, I felt like talking to you first to let you know that I'm leaving the church. And I said, you're leaving? She said, yes, I'm leaving because I'm tired. The position that I've been in, and I'm just worn down. And so I'm not sleeping, I'm not resting, and this has been going on for a long time. So I need some rest, so I have to leave. And she really felt like there was no way to say I'm tired, I need rest, or I need sabbatical, and that somehow dropping back because her body, her mind and spirit needed rest, somehow she felt that was not matching up to scripture, her own personal needs. So around self-care, we would want to have a discussion as leaders about in our churches, how do we teach self-care that matches with scripture?
Mm-hmm.
That it's all right to steal away and take rest, and it's also a way to not feel guilty.
Yes.
About passing the baton. So for me, that's self-care, and we can look at in future, and for ourselves even, and for me, how do we take these breaks and still be people of faith?
Yes, yes, that's a great example. And one of the things that I've been doing in these last few years is I try to treat myself the way I treat other people, because I treat other people better than I treat myself sometimes. And, that I'm encouraging other people, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So telling people to take a break. So I give myself the same advice that I give other people, and I take it. So that's a strategy, is just to, when you're a giver, if you overgive, then you have to, give to yourself, and know that the world still can get along without you for a bit, that the world is going to keep going if you take a break, or that those problems will still be there when you get back. So another way to look at it, they'll still be there, so you can take a break and come back. Yeah. So yes, so we will. And so we will, also coordinate with Michelle and Priscilla and talk about some of the things, because there's lots of room for tailoring, for adapting. Okay, any other questions or comments? So I'm hoping to see, we have a wonderful group on. I'm just so encouraged. And I'm hoping that people will, you know, if this is a good fit, that you'll come on and sign up, and also to share this information with people who you think might could benefit from it. So we have 14 altogether so tonight. So that is wonderful. That is wonderful.